want you to start with an exercise. I want you to think about the last time you truly felt the embodiment of the word excitement. And then I want you to think if that experience, either shared with friends, family, or even yourself, compares to the video shown up on screen. Now, as you can see, if you're an avid sports enjoyer, you might have already felt what me and my completely normal friends, shout out to them of course, felt during this amazing moment for Mexico in the Qatar World Cup in 2022. However, if you haven't, you probably might be thinking, how is something that seems so simple generate that level of happiness and excitement? Obviously, first things first, context matters. Mexico was one goal away from qualifying to the knockout stages of a World Cup, a tournament that is only held every 4 years. So obviously, not every goal, touchdown, home run, or basket is gonna make people go ballistic every time. Yet, the feeling of celebrating your team's success is almost unparalleled to any situation that could ever replicate that amount of excitement. Having said this, why did 1.3 billion people tune in to watch Argentina versus France in the World Cup final? Or why did 113 million Americans tune in to watch the Super Bowl? First things first, sports are definitely not the most important thing in a person's life. Making that argument would be, frankly, naive, but that is the exact beauty that makes them so special. Former World Cup winning striker and now renowned journalist Jorge Vallano has a phenomenal quote about football, the real football, of course, which says, "El fútbol es la cosa más importante entre las cosas menos importantes." Despite sports not taking the spotlight in many people's lives, they contribute greatly to something that I like to call the great escape. When one's mind goes to the toughest periods in recent history, one's mind immediately goes to the quarantine. For over 2 months, millions of people were left out of any sports entertainment. Sports media had resorted to Zoom calls, and people started watching replays of legendary matches, trying to gain back any sort of emotion that could help them give them a sense of hope. But in May of 2020, the German Bundesliga came to the rescue. The first football match in over 2 months saw Borussia Dortmund beat fierce rivals Schalke 04 by a scoreline of 4-0. Now, due to COVID restrictions, obviously no one was able to attend the match in person. But this actually helped people and viewership specifically increase. In this match, over 5 million people tuned in through their televisions in Germany alone. For comparison, this year's match clocked 1 million people as viewers in Germany alone. Susan Swift, a psychologist at Yale University, accurately puts the feelings and emotions that people were craving during that time of quarantine. People were looking for anything that felt and sounded like life before COVID. Sports viewership gave people a sense of hope. A sense of hope that perhaps was the only thing that was able to mitigate what felt like a Groundhog-esque simulation, as was the quarantine. When the ball finally finds its way into the net, or your team scores a touchdown after a long drive, there's a moment of pure elation, where nothing else matters except the feeling, catharsis, and emotion within that moment, and all the stress from either the pre-match, the match itself, or even situations outside of sport is all released during that moment. As part of the Great Escape, feeling an emotional connection to players, teams, etc., gives people a closer intimacy to sports viewership. In my favorite sports, the teams I support are Cruz Azul and Barcelona in football, And before you start throwing out the casual fan allegations, I just want to show you a quick picture of 5-year-old Pablo at the old Estadio Azul stadium, screaming his lungs out after Cruz Azul scored the winner. Then, in basketball, I support the Chicago Bulls, and in American football, I support the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, as you can see, I've severely suffered lately. Cruz Azul has been a part of my family since the 80s, and including my dad, we have been loyal supporters since we were born. Yet, they continuously disappoint us in the final moments, choking away unimaginably chokeable leads. Barcelona has failed to win the Champions League for over 8 years, the highest coveted trophy in all of Europe. And the Chicago Bulls ended the regular season with a winning percentage below 50%. Having said this, why is it I commit emotionally to these teams? Why is it I tune every weekend to watch these guys? Surprisingly, I am also proud to say that these teams have also been responsible for giving me the happiest moments of my life. And it is impossible to truly enjoy and grasp the importance of the highs without ever have felt the lows. Daniel Wan, a researcher whose program focuses on sports fandom, says that sports fandom has actually nothing to do with the outcome of a game. Let me explain that. For example, if a pizza restaurant continuously got your order wrong, you'd likely switch to a more reliable parlor, right? But for sports fandom, it's quite the opposite. This concept is best described as the unity of opposites, a philosophical concept first coined by Heraclitus that argues that all things in the universe are interconnected and that they have two complementary aspects in opposition to one another. Without experiencing failure in any types of sense, the feeling of fulfillment and accomplishment is completely annulled. I think I speak for most of us when I say that the goal of sports fandom and life itself is feeling a sense of accomplishment. And because being a sports fan is such a low-stakes environment, it means so much more than just yourself. It means love, it means community, it means happiness, and these are all fundamental factors that attribute to emotion. Talking about emotion, one's own recognition of being able to feel, whether it's happiness or sadness, is a crucial part of life itself. Even when I'm sad or feeling down, even I lose that sense of meaning, but sadness is inexistent without its opposite. There is no hot without cold, and the same goes for the light and the dark, and the same way we love the light, the dark fulfills its very own purpose. Because being a fan is so central to people's identities, people are willing to accept defeat and continue to be loyal to a team. As part of these social connections are a way to legitimize sports fandom. As for my own relationships, the one with my father is one of the biggest basis of my relationship with him. And without it, our relationship probably would not be the same. Let me explain. When you're at a family function or a social gathering, what is the first thing you see people talking about? Politics, maybe. The economy, if you're talking about the economy at the social gatherings, you're probably doing something wrong, but that's a topic of conversation for another time. Perhaps to your mind came the topic of sports, and you'd be exactly correct. But why? Because it's something that so many people easily relate to. Sports have been the basis of my relationship with my dad ever since I was born, and more specifically, Cruz Azul. We have supported Cruz Azul for over 23 years. We've watched them lose 5 finals, one with a devastating last-minute winner by the opposition team. Now, you might think, yeah, losing in the last minute is normal, all that. But no, not for Cruz Azul. Cruz Azul lost a final in the last minute to a goal by the opposition goalkeeper. just so you understand the absurdity of what me and my father have had to go through. For the first time in over 23 years, in May of 2021, Cruz Azul finally broke the curse. For the first time in what seemed for ages, for me, I had seen my team win the championship for the first time. And of course, from what you've gathered so far, I was obviously exhilarated. It was probably one of the happiest moments of a life. But half of the happiness that came from that moment was sharing it with someone as special as my dad. Sharing the emotions of frustration, anger, sadness, and expelling it all during one moment was an incredible moment that I will cherish forever. Every weekend from 9 to 12, me and my father sit in the couch watching sports, drinking coffee, and eating pastries. But in reality, of course, we all love sports, and especially me and my dad. But in reality, it was never about sports. Sports simply work as a medium to improve social connections. As for my friendships, me and my friend Alexis have suffered continuously watching the mediocre Pittsburgh Steelers try and scrape a playoff spot after starting the season with a pitiful 3-7 record. Me and Alexis, at least once a year, every Monday, Thursday, or Sunday, get together at her house, wear the same oversized Pittsburgh Steelers shirts, and order the exact same food. And of course, when the Steelers pull the Steelers and somehow scrape an overtime 51-yard field goal kick win, we celebrate like maniacs. But even if it's a blowout loss against the Bengals, which we both swore we could get the upset, we both know how hurt each other are. And for non-sports fans who might try and make the argument of, oh, there's always next year, or it's just a game, for us, it was never just a game. It's the team that's made us feel the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. And the Monday after football Sunday, when our team loses, me and Alexis both know what each other are feeling. And a sense of empathy, perhaps not as strong as one of death or mourning, gives the sports fan a sense of, maybe I'm not that weird. Maybe I'm not alone. Look, I'm not begging you to watch or even enjoy sports. There's always been a stigma as if it were a lower form of enjoyment and leisure, when it is equally as important to those who choose to indulge in it. I want to change the paradigm of why people watch sports and change the ignorant idea that it's something that barely scratches the surface, when in reality, its roots reach bedrock. By exploring the sociological and psychological effects of sports spectatorship in our lives, we can discover the true value of sports in our lives and communities. Thank you very much.